So, Pak Lukman, can we start the lecture today?
Oh, okay. Good morning, Prof. Nicholls.
I think good evening there, Pak Lukman.
Ah, yeah, good evening. Oh, sorry. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, nice to see you.
So, I think it's a perfect time for us to start this lecture. And let me start by saying very good evening for Professor Nicholls in Colombia right now. It's been a thrill time to finally meet you again here in this occasional. And very good morning to all the colleagues and also the students as well, both in Brawijaya University as well in outside of Brawijaya University, because Professor Nicholls, we also share your lecture invitations all over Indonesia. So probably other than the students from Brawijaya University, there are also several colleagues and also students from all over Indonesia. I hope you don't mind with that.
No,
So
absolutely. I'm very happy.
thank you. Professor Nicholls, to just give you a brief overview of this lecture program. So like what you did in last semester, this is a 3-in-1 lecture program. And the basic idea of 3-in-1 lecture program is actually to combine the internal lecturer from our university and also the visiting professor or the lecturer from reputable university, and in this case it's you, and also the lecturer from the practitioners, in a hope that by conducting this 3-in-1 lecture program, our students will experience the knowledge in wider perspective. And we are more than honored that today, once again, you're willing to collaborate or to participate in this program. And I remember last time you did the lecture in basic of plant protections lecture. And today, we're gonna conduct this program under the lecture names the management of agroecosystem. So management of agroecosystem. I remember when the last time you did the lecture about the basic of plant protections, I said to myself, it's gonna be really great if one day Professor Nicholls can also teach in the lecture of management of agroecosystem. And today the dream come true. And for me personally, it's been a great opportunity to once again have you here and to share the knowledge and also experience. We hope that we not only gain the knowledge from you, but also you can share the experience from the practice out there, probably in Latin America or maybe in another part of the world, in Asia or any part of the world. We would love to hear about those kind of experience. And Professor Nicholls, in Indonesia or as a Muslim, we just celebrate one of our important day, a religious day, which is Idul Fitri. And then I can sense that today we're gonna celebrate another happy day in terms of knowledge and experience by having you here lecturing in our program. And on behalf of the department and also on behalf of the university, allow me to address really sincere and humble, grateful for having you here around us. Before we start our lecture, let's hear the opening remarks or the opening speech from our head of our Department of Plant Protections, Brawijaya University. And for Dr. Lukman, for Honorary Dr. Lukman, the time is yours.
Thank you, Burina. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, Prof. Nicholls. And good morning to all of the audience here in Indonesia. And so I'm very, very happy that we can meet again in this 3-in-1 program. That's why in this occasion, I would like to express my gratitude to the Professor Nicholls and also later Professor Altieri that will give and have the time to share knowledge and also the experience in agroecosystem management. Actually, our student here is the student that take agroecosystem management course that is in the fourth semester. And this course actually is a series of backbone course in our study program based agroecotechnology that we have a commitment to how to achieve sustainable agriculture. This is the main goal of our study program and also the Faculty of Agriculture. That's why one way to achieve this is how to manage this agroecosystem environmentally friendly. Uh, that's all that I want to say. And once again, thank you very much to your time that will give the knowledge and also your experience to us. And I hope this lecture will improve our student knowledge and also experience. Uh, I think that's all that I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luman, for giving the opening remarks, especially to Professor Nicholls. Yeah, before we really start our lecture, actually, I'm not patient to start this lecture, but allow me to briefly explain again about these today topics. So, uh, if I'm not mistaken, or if it's not changed, Professor Nicholls today will give lectures with the titles of The Ecological Role of Biodiversity and its Management in Agroecosystems. I think this topic is really interesting, both important topics to give the basics knowledge and also to advance the knowledge of our students in terms of the management of agroecosystems. We are knowledge that biodiversity is actually the basic part and the important part of managing the ecosystem in really a good way. And before we start the lecture, allow me to briefly read the bios of Professor Nicholls. So for the audience, Professor Clara Nicholls is a Colombian agronomist with a master in entomology from the Colegio de Postgraduados Capingo, Mexico, and a PhD in entomology and biological control of insect pests from the University of California, Davis. She is a permanent lecturer on sustainable rural development in Latin America at the University of California, Berkeley. She also teaches at Santa Clara University in California and various universities in Colombia, Brazil, Nicaragua, Argentina, Spain, and Italy. Currently, she serves as the president of the Latin American Scientific Society of Agroecology, or SOCLA, and is the regional coordinator of Redundancy, a network of Latin American researchers exploring ways to evaluate and enhance resiliency of farming systems to climate change. Her research has centered on enhancing plant biodiversity of farms to provide habitat and foster natural enemies of insect pests in a range of farming systems. She is also working on methodologies to evaluate the resilience of farms to climate change and based on such assessments in designing agroecological interventions to enhance the adaptability of farming systems to climatic extremes. She is the author of 5 books. I want to read your books all. Among them is Biodiversity and Pest Management in Agroecosystems, and of more than 60 scientific journal papers. She is currently a co-director of the Centro Latinoamericano de Investigaciones Agroecológicas, or CELIA, based in Colombia. So ladies and gentlemen, for no further ado, Professor Nicholls, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Rina. Thank you, Professor Lukman, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you, with the university, with the students, even through Zoom, but I feel like we are in touch, in contact, and this is the second time that I participate, and I'm very honored for the invitation. So I wanted to share my screen. So please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see
Okay,
it loud and clear. Thank you.
perfect. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the role of biodiversity in agriculture. As Professor Rina saying, I'm an entomologist and I have been working on agroecology for several years. So, but today I wanted to concentrate my talk in the role of biodiversity and the management and how we can design and use biodiversity to improve the management and the stability of the agroecosystems. The first question that we need to start discussing is what is biodiversity? And is the variability among living organisms and the ecological complexes which they are part, including diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystem. Okay, so we have three levels here that are very important that we are going to discuss. But when we think about what is agrobiodiversity, it's a broad term that includes all the components of biological diversity that are of relevance to food and agriculture. And here we are going to expose to all the components of agriculture that constitute the agroecosystem. So if we need to summarize, agrobiodiversity is the variety and variability of animals, plants, microorganisms at the genetic, species, and ecosystem levels, which are necessary to sustain the key function of the agroecosystems, its structures, and its processes. So for that reason, I think it's very important to talk about the different levels of diversity. So we have genetic diversity, that is the variety and variability of animal, plants, microorganisms that are used or related to food production and agriculture. Species diversity is the diversity of species that support the production. Here we have the soil biota, the pollinators, the predators, parasitoids, and the species diversity in not productive but in associated landscapes that are very important. And then we have ecosystem diversity, that is the diversity of the agroecosystem and the role in the landscape. So through interactions, here genes, species, and another components of this biodiversity give rise of key processes such as production, consumption, and evolution. These are the key processes that all these species, genes, and the components of this diversity promote. And together, biodiversity, that in this case is the elements of life, and the ecological process, that is the interaction among species and between species, define the dynamics of the ecosystem. So I think here is very important to differentiate the elements of life, the interaction between elements, and the processes that are the ones who are going to define the dynamic of the ecosystems. For example, I brought an example from my country. Even you have also coffee. But in this case, you know that we used to have the rustic systems of coffee in an agroforestry system with a lot of diversity. But unfortunately, the modernization of agriculture now, at least here in my country, has arrived to the monoculture of coffee It's a variety that doesn't need shade, but unfortunately, we reduce all this biodiversity that are very important because they play a lot of ecosystem services. So when we reduce this biodiversity, we also reduce the ecosystem services that all these other trees or plants that are accompanying the coffee are very important for the stability and the resiliency. This is what happened with coffee intensification. And you can see here the reality in Colombia. This is the bottom picture is a monoculture of coffee without shade that we reduce the diversity. And the top picture is a coffee system that is agroforestry system that have provide a lot of ecosystem services. But once we reduce the biodiversity, we also reduce the ecosystem services and all the elements of biodiversity, like these trees and also the processes that they are in this agroecosystem, we are losing all these services. And in this example, you can see better how we have the rustic system, the traditional polyculture or coffee garden, the commercial polyculture, and the shade monoculture with just a few trees, and also the unshade monoculture. So probably this system have higher yield, but requires more external inputs because we don't have the elements of the biodiversity that are going to provide all these ecosystem services, all the processes that are part of this services like pest regulation, resiliency, stability, and so on. And also you can see how we reduce the climatic resiliency when we reduce the biodiversity. And this is talking about microclimatic conditions of the variability. We have in the monoculture of coffee or coffee with less shade, you can see here in this picture, in this graph, how we have more evapotranspiration in this low shade system compared with high shade, more diversified shade in this than in the lower shade. Even if we don't have shade, we are going to have more evapotranspiration and more water loss through this evapotranspiration. So these agroforestry systems are very important if we are going to talk about the resiliency. So biodiversity play a key important role on the resiliency of the agroecosystems. So, but what are the consequences of increased biodiversity? So we can have greater diversity, genetic, taxonomic, and structural within the crops that leads to greater diversity in associated biota. Increased biodiversity leads to more effective pollination and natural control of the pests. This is two very important ecosystem services. Increased biodiversity leads to tiger nutrient cycling. And I'm going to talk later about what are the importance of biodiversity in soil management, for example. And also biodiverse systems are more stable and resilient. So I think with this slide, summarize what is so important to promote and enhance biodiversity in the system and how we need to manage this biodiversity. And what is the value in the agroecological diversity? Because when we have this diversity, we increase the numbers of habitats for beneficial insects, for example, for pollinators. We also give an opportunity for coexistence of different species, the presence of disturbed environments. We are going to have more natural control. We can improve the efficiency in the use of resources. We reduce the risk. We improve food security. You have a lot of diversity in the systems. We diversify the microclimate, and also we can conserve more agrobiodiversity and all the environmental services and ecosystem services that I already mentioned are very important. So In summary, I have to say before we start with the examples that diversity in agroecosystem play a key role in prevent colonization by species and reduce the levels of infestation and pest damages, increase the resiliency and stability of the agroecosystem through the presence of redundant species that take importance when we have a specific event like a hurricane or drought. They become very important. Increase the function of the agroecosystem because we improve the ecosystem services and we improve the key processes like biological control in the agroecosystems. Okay, so we need to start with saying this, that when we reduce the diversity, like for example in the monoculture, function of the ecosystems is put at risk. You can see the picture of the monoculture. This system could be very productive, but need a lot of inputs, and also the ecosystem is at risk. Okay, but when we have a diverse pathway for the ecological process, we can ensure that we are going to have more stability and more resilience. Okay, so if we damage or if one of these ecological processes is damaged because you eliminate the habitat, for example, when you start increasing the monoculture, you destroy all these alternative habitat for natural enemies, so you need more inputs to maintain the stability and the productivity of this huge monoculture. This is what happened in agriculture. So we have three main hypotheses on how, on the function of biodiversity. For example, many components of biodiversity are essential for the functioning of the ecosystem. This is the function hypothesis. The second hypothesis is that although one species needs to be present in a small number, or the functional groups or redundant species are key for critical situation. This is the case of the redundancy hypothesis. For example, if we have windbreaks surrounding the farm, those are very important when the hurricane hit your farm because they can reduce the speed of the wind and also you reduce the damage. So this is what those species became very important. They become key in that particular moment when you have a climatic event. So this is the redundancy hypothesis. And we have other groups that are variety of types that are needed in functional categories in anticipation of the function maintenance in the face of environmental changes. For example, if one species fails, we have another one that are going to replace it. So for that reason, we call this hypothesis insurance hypothesis. So I wanted to explain these three hypotheses with different examples. So the first example of the key essential or the function hypothesis, I can talk about, for example, beneficial insects are very important and are key to maintain the stability or the reduction of the pest population. The redundancy, I already did the example with the windbreaks that reduce the speed of the wind and became very important to protect the farm or protect your crops. And in this case, the insurance hypothesis, when we have different kind of functional biodiversity, in this case, we can have predators that are generalists. We have parasitoids that are part also of natural enemies, spiders. We have a functional groups that if something happened with the spiders, at least we have insurance the parasite. Something happened with that parasitoid that are very specific, and we don't have the insect in the state that the parasitoid can make the action. We have other kind of predators that are going to replace that. So it's very important to work in this hypothesis when we talk about an army of natural enemies that we need to maintain the stability of the system. So when we talk about agrobiodiversity, is the diversity that's associated with agriculture, okay? And it includes different kind of components of this biodiversity, the seeds, or the pet or the animal breeds, or the diversity of wild species that are also part of the landscape, or even soil microorganisms, predators, pollinators. So when we talk about agrobiodiversity, it's not just the crops, it's not just the variety of the crops, it's also all the living organisms that support the production. So let me explain this slide that is very important. This is the agroecosystem biodiversity. And we have several components that are very important, that are key. You remember when we talk about the key, the functional hypothesis, these are very key for the function of the agroecosystem. For example, pollinators play a key role, a key function on pollination and genetic integration. Predators and parasitoids are key for the agroecosystem biodiversity because they participate in the population regulation, especially regulation of pests and biological control. Airworms are another key species in part of this hypothesis because they are very important in the nutrient cycling. They participate in the nutrient cycling and biomass consumption. And in the case of soil mesofauna, they are very important in the decomposition, but also in the predation, the disease control, and also in the nutrient cycle. Same with the soil microfauna. They participate in the nutrient cycling, but also in disease suppression. And you can see here that we have the components and we have the function. It's very important that we know what are the function of each of these components, because later we are going to decide what kind of practice, agroecological practice, are we going to use to enhance this biodiversity. So if we want to increase predators and parasitoids, probably we are going to select intercropping if we are working with the small farmers, or we are in the tropics like Indonesia or here in Colombia with coffee. We are going to use agroforestry system to increase pollinators, to increase predators and parasitoids. And if we wanted to increase soil mesofauna and microfauna, cover crops could be one option, or even composting or green manures. So different practices can enhance different components, but we need to be sure what are the functions that we want to enhance or to maintain, or what kind of services do we need to enhance with this biodiversity. So it's very important to mention that we have, as a farmers or as a scientists that are working on the designs of farms, we need to work with the plant biodiversity. Okay, with the farmer, we decide what kind of diversity are we going to introduce into the farm. If we are in the transition from conventional to agroecological approach, we need to redesign the farm using a plant biodiversity. The plant biodiversity are going to promote ecosystem function, like pest regulation, nutrient cycling, the function that I already mentioned. But these plant biodiversity also are going to create the condition that promote the associated biodiversity. Associated biodiversity could be some natural enemies that once you plant A cover crop, immediately natural enemies are going to be part of the associated biodiversity that create the conditions for them to establish, and they also promote this ecosystem function. And this associated biodiversity can be created by the plant biodiversity or even the surrounding environment. We don't know if the farms are surrounded by conventional farms or they have the fortune to have natural vegetation in one side of the farm. So this is very important. Okay, if we have diversity in our farms, we are going to have different properties or emerging properties of diversified agroecosystem. So we can have compensation. This is the biodiversity that increase the role of the agroecosystem, different species that play key roles and occupy different niches. I'm going to explain with example in a minute. And this is a compensation, so you don't put all the eggs in one basket, and probably one species is replaced the function with another one. Complementary, when we have a combination of plants that facilitate the use of the resources. For example, this is the case of legumes that fix nitrogen, and this legume sometimes provide nitrogen to the graminea like the maize. This is the best examples, corns and beans. And or when we have flowers of the corn attract natural enemies that control pests in the legumes, because the pollen of the corn attract natural enemies that are going to control specific pests in the other crops. So corn and beans here, they complement each other. There is a synergy that are very important. And the other property is the redundancy. And when we have a very diverse agroecosystem, we can have more function, and this is what we call redundancy. Sometimes they become very important and when we have these environmental changes or a climatic event. And resiliency is another big property, that very emerging property that is very important. Resiliency is when the agroecosystem are able to resist the hurricane or the climatic event, but at the same time they can compensate or recuperate very quickly and maintain or retain the structure and productivity after a disturbance. So they have the capacity to resist, but also they have the capacity to recover. This is what resiliency is all about. It's a very important property that you need to have in consideration when you are designing the agroecosystems, if you have problems of climate change, obviously. Okay, the other thing is that I mentioned that we have genetic diversity, species diversity, and also we have landscape diversity. So I wanted to talk here about the biodiversity management at the landscape level. Why? Because many peasants practice a mosaic farming, characterized by small fields inserted into a landscape matrix dominated by natural vegetation. This is what happened here in Latin America with small farmers. They are inserted in a matrix dominated by natural vegetation. For example, in Mexico, the Purepecha Indians that lives in the Lake Pátzcuaro in Mexico, they use agriculture, but they also harvest wild species as a complex subsistence models based on multiple uses of natural resources. They practice agriculture, but they also are gatherings and use all these resources that are available in this landscape, in their territory. These Purepecha Indians use more than 200 24 species of wild plants in their diet because they use it for the diet, for medicinal plants, and energy needs. And this is the kind of mosaic that I was talking about. This is in Guatemala. And you can see how the small plots of small farmers are surrounded by this natural landscape matrix that offers many ecosystem services, but at the same time are part of the diet and also the uses that they have of the landscape. Let me explain this example from Mexico, because this is in Tlaxcala, and I think it's very important to see all the things that farmers can do even with the landscape, how they use the landscape. But for that, we need to account for the total output of the production per hectare. So what the family can produce in the field, but also what they can harvest from the edges. It's very important. So for example, in this particular example in Oaxaca, in the field, the families can produce 11 crops, when corn produce 2.5 tons per hectare. They have beans, they have other kind of crops. They also have weeds that we call weeds, but they used to call quelites. They are wild plants, and they produce 13 tons per hectare. Each family consumes 3 kilograms, 2 or 3 times per week. So they produce a lot in this in 1 hectare of the field. And in the age, they can produce fruit trees, 8 species. They produce apple, pears, figs, and so on, and also some herbs. And they have an income per hectare per year of $1,000, and 600 comes from the age. So they are using the landscape even as part of their strategy, and it is very important that we account for the total output of the farm. And this is in one example from Asia, and I think it's very important because you can have even the same condition in Indonesia, where you have the paddy rice, but also you have the surrounding that play a key ecological role. And so you can see here we had a plant diversified farms compared with mono rice farms. And here what we wanted to see is the abundance of predators observed especially in diversified farms. And you can see how we have more predators, abundance of predators, than in a monoculture. This is a very important paper that explain the role of biodiversity in the surrounding paddy rice in order to reduce population of pests, insect pests. And what are the effects of this diversification? When you have more diversification, you can have more predator abundance, you reduce the pests, the population of the pests abundance, you increase yields, and you reduce the insecticide use. So this is very important if you want to do the transition or the conversion from conventional agriculture into more diversified farming system using agroecological approach. And this is another example that I really like it because I work with this strategy. Sometimes you cannot plant the flowers inside the paddy because the machinery or the farmers don't want to combine these flowers in the surrounding, but you can improve the edges, putting flowers, because flowers have a lot of pollen and nectar that enhance the population of natural enemies that are going to control some pests in the paddy rice. Okay, this is how we can manage how we can use the diversity at the landscape or on the surrounding areas. Let's talk a little bit about the biodiversity management at the property level. at the farm level. And one example is using polyculture. When we use polyculture over the time and space in form of strip cropping, intercropping, or even if we have cover crop, agroforestry, there are different kind of strategies how we can diversify our agroecosystem at the farm level. And these are just some advantages of polyculture. For example, the population of pests can decline because we have more natural enemies. With this strategy, we can reduce or suppress weeds. We can have more efficient of the nutrients, and we can improve the productivity for per the total output per unit surface. This is in Spanish, I'm so sorry, but there are different practices of diversity, and there are different effects that we can have in their farms. So we can have rotation, for example, that is is one example from temporal diversity, because we can have legumes, and then we can have cereals, and we maintain the soil cover, and we can have more conservation in this case, and we can break the cycle of pests, we can break the cycle of diseases when we use rotation. So it's very important. So there are several good advantages when we decided to diversify with rotation, especially for grains. In the case of polyculture, here you use two or more species of the crops that are in the same in the same space, and here we have more complementarity. So we can have control of diseases, we can control weeds, we can control pests, because the pollen and nectar one can provide the habitat of natural enemies that are going to control the pests in the second crop. For example, corn and beans, but if we have a squash, the squash can control the weeds. So it's very important the selection of crops that are going to be part of this polyculture. And in the case of agroforestry system, as let's say trees with annual crops, they can modify the microclimate. They can even, you use trees that are legumes that fix nitrogen, they can enhance soil fertility. Some trees also provide nutrients from the deeper, from the certain kind of horizon that are very deep, so they can bring nutrients for the annual crops, and also they can provide the condition for the biology to establish and provide better condition for the annual crops, for example. When we talk about another practice that many people use in perennials is the cover crops and mulch. And I'm going to show some examples, so later I will explain what are the advantages. And also we can have crops and animals together. This is what we call silvopastoral system that are very important, because the animals and crops complement each other. Okay, this is the case of certain kind of polyculture. This is our picture from my farm. So I wanted to share with you some of them are very important, because as you can see, intercropping, as I mentioned before, intercropping can increase biotic diversity and activity. It means that it provides the conditions for natural enemies, it provides the condition for soil biota and other functional biodiversity components like pollinators, for example. But also intercropping improve abiotic condition like higher nutrient availability, increase soil organic matter, improve soil structure, modify microclimate. And these two, biotic and abiotic, are very important for the ecological services and the agroecosystem function. This is what we emphasize too much, because this is what we want when we have a good management of the agroecosystem. We want it to enhance pest regulation, we want to improve soil fertility, we want to increase nutrient cycling and enhance water storage. And we can improve the agroecosystem performance through a design, how we are going to redesign the farms in order to ensure that we are going to have a good plant health and soil quality, higher total productivity, and how we are going to enhance the agroecosystem resiliency. So one way is using the polycultures, as I mentioned. This is corn and beans together. This is very important because they occupy the niches, and it's very difficult for the weeds to establish, because as you can see in the picture, the beans are very dense and they cover the soil. There is no light for like weeds, and also the pollen of the corn attract natural enemies that are going to control the pests of the beans. And the other thing that is very important, the beans are fixing the nitrogen that the corn is going to use. So here you can see the complementarity. And it provides a lot of organic matter, are very important. And this is one example that I wanted to bring in. It's part of the polyculture, and I think it's very well known. I don't know, probably you know this push-pull system, and that has been very popular. This is for the stem border control in African maize. And you can see here that we have different crops together, and they use the molasses grass and the desmodium. And you can see that they use certain kind of grasses that provide certain chemicals that are going to push away some pests. And they have other plants that have certain chemicals from Napier border that are going to attract moths and lay eggs, and they are going to also increase parasitoids. And also we have desmodium as an intercropping that is a legume that are going to fix nitrogen, are going to compensate the maize. And so this system is kind of a polyculture, very interesting design, because they are using Napier and Sudan grass as borders as a track crop, and at the same time enhance the parasitation by Cotesia wasp. So here we are repel the pest, but also or serve as a trap crop, but also enhance the parasitation of the Cotesia, the parasitoid. And they also use molasses grass and desmodium as an intercrops that repel the stem borers. If the pests enter into the system, they can repel immediately because they have certain chemicals. But desmodium also suppress the striga, that is a parasitic weed. They also fix nitrogen, and it's a very good forage for increasing milk production. So with this design, they were able to increase maize yield in 15 to 20%. And for every dollar that they invested in this design, they return 230 for every dollar that they invested. So this is the kind of research that we need to do in order to show that we can design the farm using biodiversity, and we can reduce the cost of production of farmers. And also in the case of polyculture, I think it's very important to say that they use better the solar radiation, and they are very important because they use better the resources. And this is one example that I wanted to share with you with fava beans. What are the relationships between the two plants, especially in the soil? So maize, when we had the polyculture of maize and fava beans, we have the maize over yields 43% and the fava 26%. Why? Because they are rich in nitrogen, but poor in phosphorus. And also the fava exudates organic acids and protons that acidify the rhizosphere and mobilize the phosphorus that may absorb. So here we have that complementarity that are very important when we have these two plants growing together. So they are very important because they not only provide nitrogen because it's a legume, but also acidify the rhizosphere and mobilize the phosphorus that makes absorb. And we can quantify the land equivalent ratio when, for example, we have corn and soybean. Let's say that in corn in monoculture, we produce 4 tons, 4,000 kilos. And being in monoculture, we have 1,000 kilos, 1 ton. But when we have intercrop, we have 3,000 corn and 750 soybean. But we cannot just look for, if you see this table, you probably say, no, I prefer to go for corn in monoculture because produce more. Look, 4,000 over 3,000. But this is not a way to look at, because here you are producing corn plus soybean. In this, you are producing only corn. So what we are using is the LER, the land equivalence ratio. That is, for example, LER, you put the information that you have of the production of corn in a polyculture over the corn in a monoculture, right? Plus the bean in a polyculture over the beans in a monoculture. This is what you have, how you use this formula. So you have here 0.75 plus 0.75, you have 1.50. It means that you need 1.5 hectare, 1.5 hectare of land are needed to produce the same amount in a monoculture. So you need more land. When you are using the polyculture, you have more, you use better, you are more efficient in the use of resources, okay? Because you are overproduced, you need more area in if you are going to use monoculture. And also it's very important to say that the polyculture exceeded greater stability in yields and lower production declines than the monoculture when we had climatic events. For example, data from 94 experiments with various sorghum association with guandul, that is a legume that we have here in Latin America, show that if we have a particular event, drought mainly, the monoculture of guandul, of this legume, failed 1 in 5, and the sorghum 1 in 8. But if we have the monoculture, if we have the polyculture, the sorghum and guandul will fail on 1 in 36. So they are more resilient, and the probability they are going to fail is lower. And the other aspect that I wanted to share with you is how we use the biodiversity how we manage the biodiversity at the genetic level. And I have to say that many traditional agroecosystems, or in many traditional farmers in Latin America, and I imagine in Asia also, they use a lot of traditional varieties of maize, beans, potatoes, especially here in Latin America that we are center of origin of these crops. So farmers are using thousands of varieties. And they are very well adapted to the different environments. So farmers are maintaining this genetic diversity of crops in form of traditional varieties, and sometimes they sow 2 or 3 varieties of each crop in the same field. They are using multiple varieties of crops, and for that reason they provide intra and interspecific diversity that is very important for the stability of the crop. And from the talking about resiliency, genetic diversity is so important because the genetic diversity are more resilient, especially some varieties are more tolerant to climatic events, and also to different kind of diseases and pests, and all these abiotic events that I mentioned. So in summary, genetic diversity acts as an insurance to address environmental changes or social and economic needs or different kind of problems that farmers can have. So genetic diversity in Latin America, especially with the small farmers, are very important resource that they have. It's the only weapon that they have to fight against corporation. It's the only strategy that they are using to fight to maintain the genetic diversity, but also the diet, to maintain the tradition, the cultural traditions are very important. This is a symbol of resistance. And here we have the material, the genetic material are contained in traditional varieties, also in modern cultivars, in crop wild relatives, and another wild plant species that can be used in the future for food and agriculture, obviously. This is the traditional variety of corn. This is in Mexico. This is Maize de Cajete. This is variety from Oaxaca, a region, a semi-arid region from Mexico. They are very drought tolerant. They are very important, are part of the culture of these communities. And why traditional varieties are so important, especially for small farmers? Because these traditional varieties perform very well at marginal environments. Look, probably they don't have the maximum yield like the Green Revolution varieties, but the majority of our farmers, poor farmers, are in marginal environments, and the traditional varieties perform very well. And the other aspects that are very important on genetic diversity from the disease management point of view is that when we have diseases and we have our field just with a monoculture with one genetic variety, we can have very easily to obtain epizotia, because the pathogen, in order to have a disease, we have to have a virulent pest, a pathogen that is virulent. We have to have high temperature and high humidity, and we have to have a crop that is susceptible. And if this variety is susceptible, it's very easy that we achieve the epizotia, like you can see here. We can destroy or the disease can destroy the crop. But if we mix one variety that is susceptible with one variety that is tolerant, the probability of the pathogen to arrive or to land in a variety that is tolerant is 50%. And if we mix 4 varieties, or say 1 susceptible and 3 that are tolerant, we increase the probability that the pathogen um, doesn't land in these varieties. So it's very important to prevent disease problems. So this is one way, this is an insurance for farmers to have traditional varieties, and from these traditional varieties that are tolerant to certain kind of diseases or certain kind of pests or certain kind of problems. When we talk about resiliency or climate change resiliency, I think it's very important that we use other kind of indicators, because this is a table that explains the comparison of productivity of native varieties versus burlap varieties of wheat. And you can see here the native varieties obviously are produce less, 3,000 kilos per hectare, compared with the modern varieties for 4,000 kilos, 600. So they can produce 1,000 kilos more in the modern variety, just if we observe this indicator. But we need to observe other indicators, like, for example, the demand of water. In the case of native varieties, the demand of water is very low compared with the bullet varieties. Look, the demand of fertilizer, the same. The native varieties are demand less fertilizer than the bullet varieties. So modern varieties are very good if you have water and if you have money to buy fertilizer, because it depends on the package. But this is another indicator that we need to measure if we are doing research, because if we measure the productivity with respect to water use, look, kilogram per hectare per centimeter of water, you can see that the native varieties perform very well compared with the bullet variety. Look, 3 times more, produce more than the bullet variety. This is the kind of indicators that are needed. And this is the reason why farmers need to have native varieties, because they are more resilient, they are more drought tolerant, some varieties, and also they can be more disease tolerant. And the other aspect that are very important in the management of the biodiversity is how we can improve soil quality using these varieties. And this is the kind of soil that we need to have: well added and very porous organic soil, stimulate this biological activity and infiltration that we need to maintain the productivity. And we need to, with different kind of management that we can do in the crop or in the system, we can increase the stability of the good field. And you can see this is a sample of soil aggregate with low organic matter. That is, you can do this example with this base. You put this aggregate in the water, and you can see how it dissolves, compared with the soil aggregate with high organic matter that they maintain the structure. And it's very important, 1% of organic matter increase 12 liters of water for a square meter. So it's very important to increase the organic matter, because they return the carbon into the soil, because soil organic matter is 58% carbon. This is very important in a scenario of climate change. 1% of organic matter in the soil weighs 36.5 tons and contains 21 tons of carbon per hectare. Very, very important in a scenario of climate change. But when we increase 1% of organic matter in the soil, we storage 21.2 tons of carbon per hectare. So this is one management that we need to do all the time, increase organic matter in the soil. Also because if we increase 1% of organic matter in the soil, we can store an additional 16.7 liters of water per square meter, or 12, depend on the type of soil that you have, but more or less from 12 to 16 liters of water per square meter. So if we increase 1% and we talk about hectare, we can hold or increase or store 177,000 liters per hectare of water. Very important in scenario of climate change. And also because in the soil, when we have increased soil organic matter, immediately we are going to give the opportunity of fungi, bacteria, and protozoa, and different kind of organisms that are going to play a key ecological role necessary to maintain the stability of the agroecosystem. This is the case of the mycorrhiza, that is very important. And this is the question: what is the difference between having or not having mycorrhiza? And a plant planted in a liter container can have 1 kilometer of mycorrhiza. Radical hair absorb nutrient within 2 millimeters. And EFAS scan up to 80 millimeters. So if we have mycorrhiza, this in the rhizosphere, we can explore more and look for water in 40 times more. So I think this network extract nutrients from the space of roots, and if we don't have mycorrhiza in the scenario of climate change, the plants are going to suffer more. And so we need to maintain this biodiversity. We need to reduce the use of pesticides and toxic wastes. We need to avoid soil compactation if we want to maintain this soil biota. We need to enrich soil with organic matter, very important. We need to keep mulch to maintain the soil covered with mulch or other material. We need to inoculate, if we don't have this soil biota, we need to inoculate these microorganisms. If we have animals, is a very good source of soil biota, because with the manure, this is part of the nutrient cycling. We can adopt soil conservation practices to prevent erosion. And also we can use different strategies of diversification, like agroforestry or polyculture. This is also here in my farm, here in Miguel's and my farm, how we use all the residues that we have in order to cover the soil, and how we have a very good productivity. And talking about the other kind of diversity that I think is very important to talk, because agriculture is the coevolution of human and nature. So for that reason, we need to talk about the ethnoecological diversity, is how the humans, the society, have used nature. And at least here in Latin America, there are more than 460 different ethnic groups, especially in Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and Mexico. And indigenous groups still manage local ecosystem with traditional knowledge. And ethnoecological knowledge include, for example, complex soil taxonomies, complex biota and agrohabitats, and they have been shown that it's possible to maintain the diversity when they keep their own tradition and the culture. And indigenous knowledges that have nurtured the traditional agroecosystem, and this is a proof of resiliency. And endured over the centuries, is a strategic starting point for agroecology. Very important, and we recognize and we are very thankful for the traditional knowledge that these farmers have, indigenous people and farmers. They have 7,000 crop species, 2 million of food varieties adapted to thousands of geographies, microclimates, soil, and ecosystems. And 80 to 90% of the seeds on the production of the small farms are Creole or native seeds. And it's very important to understand this kind of traditional knowledge because they have a deep understanding of nature. And probably in Indonesia is the same, but this we have a lot of respect of these farmers that have a lot of knowledge. This is in Mexico, how farmers have in 1 hectare, they have a deep understanding. This is what we call the corpus and the praxis. In 1 hectare, they can have up to 300 different varieties of plants. The major crop here is coffee, but they use other plants that are very important. They have their own taxonomy. They know when they have to prune, to open windows for the allowing certain plants to grow, and also to maintain the ventilation to avoid disease problems. So it's very complex knowledge that are behind this traditional knowledge. And you can see here that there are all kind of I'm sorry that this is in their own language, but also in Spanish. But they can harvest um, coffee, but also they have different plantains, citrus, palms. They can harvest fungus. They have flowers. They have avocado. They have different kind of fruits. So I can say that they have 300 species in 1 hectare that are used. They have different uses, but also are part of the economic food sovereignty and also an economic strategy. And this is just the key interaction of the management of the biodiversity. We can use the diversity to create this interference. The different components interfere for natural resources, modification of microclimate, like some components may alter the light penetration, for example, in agroforestry system. They reduce the humidity and the wind intensity. The case of silvopastoral systems, and you reduce the evapotranspiration and provide the condition for the animals. They're very important. They also have effects on the soil. Some components help to retain soil um, for soil erosion, to control erosion, um, foster more efficient nutrient cycling, and contribute to maintain more organic matter. Um, I wanted to just finish my last part of my presentation to with examples from California and different, especially with vineyards, because we have a lot of challenges, especially with organic agriculture. The top picture here is an organic vineyard, and you can see that it's very difficult to see diversity. It's just the vines. So our challenge had been showing that it's possible to diversify the vineyards and reduce the use of organic inputs that they are using a lot. And so you can see here, this is a picture in Italy where they are planting olives with vineyards. This is in Chile, vineyards with beans, and here olives and fruit trees and olives together in Italy. And and one strategy with the orchards had been the cover crops, different kind of cover crops as a strategy to enhance diversity in vineyards. And we can use different kind of cover crops like mixtures of legumes that fix nitrogen and increase soil fertility. And there are a list of legumes like bell beans, clover, peas, veg, etc. We can use mixture of grasses if we want to increase organic matter and retain soil. So here we can use rye, oats, native grass, triticale, barley, buckwheat. And we can measure grasses and legumes at the same time with dual purpose. But also an example that I'm going to show is because as an entomologist, I work in the design of these vineyards to enhance beneficial insect. And so the idea is to enhance diversity using flowers that attract natural enemies. For example, alyssum, red clover, yarrow, Spanish daisy, mustard, radish. So the question is, what are the common knowledge that we have from cover crops? Are species effective? Certain species, I can say that certain species are much better than others, and they really reduce the population of pests. This is what I wanted to share with you. And in California, many farmers are using, and also in Chile, are using cover crops, oats or veg to enhance soil structure and soil fertility. As you can see here, using legumes to enhance soil fertility, using during the winters, the other crops like Vicia to enhance soil fertility, or mixes of Vicia and some rye or oats together. Why? Because here we wanted to enhance the population of certain kind of organisms that are very important. In this case, at the Rhizobium. This is a genus of bacteria associated with the formation of root or the formation of these nodules on the plants. These bacteria have a symbiosis with the legumes. They take the nitrogen from the atmosphere and pass it to the plant, allowing it to grow in soil low in nitrogen. So they are very important to enhance soil fertility and to disponibilize nitrogen. And the cover crops have multiple effects, many agronomic factors simultaneously. For example, cover crops, as I was saying before, they add nitrogen when you are using a legume. But there are several cover crops that suppress weeds. But here we need to know what kind of species of cover crops we need to use. They can suppress diseases. They can suppress nematodes. For example, tagetes is one of the cover crops that we use to suppress nematodes. They can control erosion. They can add organic matter. They can attract beneficial insects if we use cover crops that have flowers. They can decrease nutrient losses because they control erosion, and they increase infiltration of water if we are using grasses. And also they can alleviate subsoil compaction. So this is just an example. This is in Italy, where they use fava here between the vines. Sometimes they incorporate the fava before they when they are in flower to add all the or obtain all the benefits of the legume. And you can see here how the nitrogen is transferred from no-till cover crop to the gray wines via external IFAs. And also they can affect the water infiltration. This is just one study that demonstrates when you use strawberry clover or when you use the residual vegetation and so on. So you can see that strawberry clover is much better in infiltration rate. And also you can enhance the condition of the plant much better when you have this association. And but it's very important in the case as we discuss later is in the water rotation when you use this as a mulch. Mulching is very, very important in the infiltration, uh, especially in Mediterranean conditions. The work that I've been doing in California um, has this title that is how we can manipulate to reintroduce diversity on organic farms to promote biological control and resiliency. This has been my work in the last 10 years, where I have been trying to redesign the farms using diversity. Uh, this is our main problem that we have in vineyards is greatly hopper and trips. I'm sorry. And these are the beneficial insects that are attracted by cover crops. We have the parasitoid of eggs of this leafhopper. We have spiders, ladybugs, lacewings, and orius that are very important in vineyards, but we also have an army of predators pardon, um, that are generally natural enemies of leafhoppers. So many farmers manage fruit vegetation or plant cover crops as a habitat management in vineyard to enhance natural enemies. Um, Others farmers use hedgerows, others use island or corridors to meet the needs of beneficial organisms. So now we know that we need to provide the condition for natural enemies to establish, and we need to provide pollen and nectar for them to stay and work for us. This is the kind of organic vineyard production in California, where they allow the presence of this wild brassica in the winter to grow. And then when the spring comes, they incorporate this cover crop. And now we have a virtual monoculture because we need to apply, or the organic farmers need to apply a lot of inputs. So the idea was to how we can reintroduce diversity, in this case, cover crops, to provide habitat and pollen and nectar for beneficial insects. So we did this research um, introducing buckwheat, Phagopyrus esculentum, mixed with sunflower. At the beginning, at the beginning of the season, the buckwheat bloomed, and later in the season, the sunflower bloomed. And it's very important to have in consideration that we need to plan the strategy. We need to plan the cover crop before the population of the pests started to increase. Because if we plan the cover crop late, and the natural enemies cannot achieve or reach the pest population. You know that natural enemies are more affected and low densities of the pests. So there is a ideal as a food for natural enemies. We need to plant the cover crop before the pest population started to reach the peak. And we did this in Fexer vineyard and an organic vineyard. So we decided to compare the farmers management with the design using cover crops. And here you can see the population of the pests in the organic farm without cover, compared in the area where we use cover crops. The population of the pests didn't reach the level of the economic level of pest. But this was the first year. The second year, we started to observe that in the cover crop, we have a lot of natural enemies that were very happy there because they have pollen, nectar, but also they have pests there. So what we did, we mowed the cover crop every other row, and we placed traps to see if we force the movement of natural enemies into the vine. And you can see here in the graph the effects of cutting the cover crops. This is the population of nymphs of leafhopper 1 week after, and 2 weeks after we can reduce the population of the pests. And this is the population of the parasitoid, because most of the parasitoids were in the vine, in the cover crops. So before mowing and 1 week after, all of them went to the vine. It's very important that that mow of the cover crops need to be done when the adults of the leafhopper are laying eggs, because this is a parasitoid of eggs. So we need here adults in the vines in order for the anagrams to accomplish the role of pest regulation. And there are many farmers that are implementing this strategy. This is in another vineyard in Napa Valley, and they are using, as you can see, planting buckwheat with the moisture of the spring, with the rains, and also you can see here they are putting Alisum, Lobularia maritima, in the line of the drip irrigation, because this is drought resistant, but they need a little water. And every other row we are doing a strategy. Once to maintain the flowers for the natural enemies. And here we are planting Facilia every other row to enhance the population of natural enemies. So we were using different kind of flowers in order to see what are the major component of this diversity, and they are more effective. So you can see here that we have a lobularia in the line of drip, but also we have buckwheat in between the vines that are also very efficient and very drought they don't need water. And you can see the comparison that we did with the farmers management in this in this vineyard, and the population of the farm management, the population of the nymphs were very high compared when we had the buckwheat. And also you can see here the spider abundance when we have cover crops compared with the farmers management, that they didn't have any cover crop during the summer. That is when we had the problems. So we did the sequencing in another farm. What kind of flowers are better, because we don't have rain during the summer, so we need to look for flowers that are drought resistant, like wild carrot. And so this is the sequencing from May to June, and June to September. This is the only flower that remains during the drought season, because it's very drought in California. And you can see here the full season bloom sequences that we can plan, starting from February to August, October, even September, October, where wild carrot are the only ones that remain during this drought season. And we have sweet alyssum, and we have black buckwheat that sow in April. And but the idea is to ensure that we are going to have the pollen and nectar necessary for natural enemies. And this is more or less the flowers that we use in cover crops: wild carrot, visual wheat, buckwheat, sweet alyssum, and purple tannins. Probably there are more, but these are the ones that we study, and they were now very well used by farmers. And I think the concept of functional diversity is very important. Not just any sort of diversity will work. We need to select the flowers based on success in previous vineyard trails. So we need to do the research. We need to know the biology of key natural enemies that we wanted to enhance. because in the case of parasitoid, they are limited by in the field nectar resources. It means the longevity and the fecundity are part of this, the quality of the nectar. Spiders in niche on niche space, alternative prey, nectar. So we need spiders, I think, are the predators that we need to study the most, because some of them are, so we need to monitor them in times of the day that sometimes it's difficult, later in the day, and but we need to do this kind of research. Um, Realistic management, especially in California vineyards, is the drought tolerance, because we don't have any rain during the summer. Doesn't interrupt vine management, and doesn't compete with the vine, with the vine. So we need to have those concepts in order to look for the functional diversity that are going to work. And this is what we did. Fall, winter, you can see here how we saw the Phacelia, and this is the vine, and this is the wild carrot, still there. Spring, early summer, late summer, the wild brassica, the wild carrot are the ones who is the one that are the best. And the other aspect, just to finish, is that at the large scale level, we can work with Hedgerow Corridor. That is another strategy that many farmers are using. And in California, we use uh, um, the riparian habitat, like wild blackberry patches near the vineyards, that enhance the effectiveness of anagrus, because they have another parasitoid in the blackberry. So the anagrus arrive early into the vineyards if we have these riparian uh, wild blackberries. But because the wild berries are difficult to manage, we are using the wild this prunus, planting the prunus in the surrounding of the vineyards to um, provide the condition of anagrus, the parasitoid, over winter here, and use this alternative prey. And so you can see here that from this refugee, the French prune tree, they can move into the vineyard very quickly. And the other thing that we are doing is they try to look the landscape heterogeneity. How is the diversity and the area near the farm, near the agroecosystem? Um, Probably we have low heterogeneity like this one, surrounded by monoculture, or we have high heterogeneity that they have certain kind of patches of natural vegetation. And particularly in the work that I have been doing in Fexer, we observe that this farm, there is a tendency of moving of natural enemies from the native vegetation, more predators near the natural vegetation, and far away are the decrease. So this is generalizing over 23 studies that result for pollinator richness are similar, but also with predators are similar. And here, this is the situation that we have in our vineyard, in the vineyard that we work, that this is 300 hectares of vineyard, and they are surrounded by natural vegetation or riparian forest. But if you have just one side of your farm with this natural vegetation and you have a big farm, so you need to do something, because natural enemies only move up to, especially predator, move up to 25 meters. So what we did, you can see here, the leafhopper density, because we measured the density of the pest, started to increase away from the riparian forest. So near the forest or the riparian area, we have less population of nymphs than far away. So for that reason, we built this corridor. This corridor was connected to the riparian forest, and the idea with this corridor was to serve as a natural highway for natural enemies to establish, to colonize from here, have habitat, have pollen, have nectar, and then they colonize the vineyard. This is what the hypothesis. And you can see here that near the corridor, the population of the leafhopper were lower compared far away from the corridor, because the near in the first 25 meters, the predators stay close to the corridor. And now many vineyards are using these habitat corridors with more than 100 species, and are providing the conditions for beautify the system, but at the same time giving more stability and more resiliency to their farms. And you can see here the distance from the hedgerow of the Anagrus. This is in Montera, another vineyard, and you can see that near the hedgerow, they have more population of the parasitoid, and the same with the Preston, another vineyard, with the parasitoid flowers at 20 meters from flowers, and the population of Anagrus was present. This is another vineyard that I wanted to share with you, because here what we built with this was an island, a biodiversity island, an insectary. And this is a Benziger Vineyard that we participate with Miguel in the construction, in the design of the farm. They have all these, everything is recycling, even the water with these natural filters. There is a lot of diversity. They have vine as a main crop, but also they have olive trees, and they also allow us to create this island of natural enemies. And as you can see, this is near the insectary, the population of these trees were lower compared far away from the insectary. And you can see the population of natural enemies, Orius, coccinelle, spider, were very high near the insectary. And very interesting result is that early in the season, certain kind of group of insects move into the vineyard. You know, Orius and coccinelle. In the middle of the season, Anagrus, and late in the season, Anagrus and coccinelle are the ones who really move into the vineyard. So in summary, we can have this condition, high diversity in the landscape, that can provide enough habitat and food for natural enemies. This is the optimal condition, because this matrix allows the condition and the stability for the farm. But not all the farmers are in this situation. In this case, low diversity in the landscape does not provide habitat, no food for natural enemies. So what we need to do, we need to do a restoration. It requires not only at the farm level, but also at the landscape level. And this is one example from Chile. This is the distribution of corridors and nets on the farm. And you can see here how we started to build these corridors, and how we can start to build this condition in the borders, adding a lot of flowers with our redesign of the farm, with cover crops, borders, corridors, and adding a lot of diversity into the vineyard. This is a very famous vineyard in Chile, in the contours and in the borders, and using flowers as a major flower strip as a major strategy. And the idea is to create condition and habitat that promote ecosystem function, nutrient cycling, pest regulation, facilitation, beneficial interaction, system stability, off-site and on-site, within the farm, in the landscape. And for that, we can plan with plant biodiversity with farmers, plan this design what we are going to do on site with the rotation, using different practices, using different culturals or breeds. We can improve the abiotic condition. We can improve soil structure with this strategy on site, but we also can work off site with the hedgerow, with borders, with lakes, with corridors, enhancing microclimatic condition, habitats. But these offsite also are going to benefit predators, insect, birds that are going to help with this pest regulation. This is what we call the associated biodiversity. Also on-site with mycorrhiza beneficial soil organisms are also be part of this associated biodiversity that are going to provide this ecosystem function. And this is more or less the same in the agroecosystem management. This is what the course is all about. I imagine that you're going to talk more about this, but summarizing my talk, I can say that we can plan the biodiversity. We are going to have associated biodiversity, and probably we can count with the biodiversity of the surrounding environment to reduce pests, to create stability and resiliency. Our approach is more preventive. In the case of curative strategies at the agroecological pest management, we start with the building internal strength into the system with the crop selection, build healthy soil, habitat conservation, and biota enhancement to stress pests, enhance beneficial. Probably we can have post-planting management and have to have reactive management. But the idea or the overall goal is to maintain the optimal crop yield, quality, enhanced landscape aesthetics, and ecosystem services with positive environmental effects. We can have this kind of system, but also farmers need to envision a new management, a new design in their farms. This is our books, and with this, we wanted to finish my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nicholls, for insightful and very interesting lecture that you've conducted today. Before we start our question and answer sessions, let me just briefly, not really summarize, just to recap the things that you've been lecturing. You talk about biodiversity since the genetic level until the landscape level. You also talk about how to enhance the biodiversity. It's really interesting to me that you also mentioned about ethnoecological diversity, how important it is to really appreciate the indigenous knowledge. And it is also interesting for me personally when you say that when we talk about functional diversity, not just any sort of diversity will work. So this is also important things to be considered by the practical of the agroecosystems. And I need to say thank you to you that not only you give us the knowledge, but also you took us like in a virtual tour from the Latin America, the experience in Latin America, in America, until in Europe, in Italy. Feels like we're going to really a good practice of agroecosystem and agriculture in each country. So with that recap of things that you've been shared to us, let's now we entertain the audience with questions and answers. We already have several questions in the chat room, but I'm sorry, since I think the time is relatively limited, so we will only accept 6 questions. So 3 questions for the first sessions and then another 3 questions for the second sessions, if it's okay for Professor Nicholls.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. I'm so sorry that was too long.
No, it's
but
not. Really not. It's just
because the English first is your second language, is my second language.
Yes.
And So you need to be slow, and I'm sorry about the mistakes, but the idea was to bring these ideas that you mentioned. I think you captured the summary very well, from the genetic to landscape, ethnoecology, and all the biodiversity words. We
Thank
need a
you.
lot. Thank you.
Just doing the perfect lecture,
Okay.
Professor. Okay, now let's enter the first questions. I can see here the first question is from Mia Prastika. I think she's the student from our university, Brawijaya University. So she's asking, what are the specific criteria of plants that can be used as a cover crop? I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. That was not the first question actually. Before Mia, actually, there is questions from Faiz Nasrihuddin. He's also from Brawijaya University, and he's asking: are all natural enemy taxa diversity correlated positively with plant or crop diversity? Thank you. Probably before you answer Mia's question, you can answer first Faiz's question. Sorry, this is the first question from Faiz about whether all natural enemy taxa diversity correlated positively with plant or crop diversity. Is it always positively correlated? Professor, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a very, very important question. And thank you, Mia, for asking that question, because it gives me the opportunity to explain a little bit this.
Mhm.
No, because you have more diversity, you have more stability. Let's say if you have a farm, or you find a farmer that have 20 crops or 50 crops in their farm, it's more stable than the one that have 3 or 4. So it's not that kind of correlation. Why? Because we need probably the farmer that have 4 or 5 compared with the one that have 20. This one have synergies. They have that plants that, or the crop that they have, provide habitat for natural enemies. They provide pollen for natural enemies, and the natural enemies can have access to the pollen. Because if you have, for example, a flower that is a tubular flower, the teeny parasitoid cannot get the nectaries. It's too narrow. So this is not always a positive correlation. So we need to look, when we are looking for plants for the design of polyculture, for example, you cannot put together plants that are going, or crops that are going to compete with the same resources. So we need to know very well the phenology of the plant, and what are the synergies that they are going to complement. For example, in the case of trees, when we have agroforestry system, we use trees because the trees have one role. They can push the nutrients for the annual crop. They explore a different horizon in the soil, at the deep level, and the same with the polyculture. If you have 2 annual crops, you need to see that they can complement each other, not that they compete each other. Okay, for example, in the polyculture, we use plant that legume with the gramínea, with the cereal, because the legume provides nitrogen to the gramínea, and the gramínea, in the case of corn, provide other things to the beans, so they complement perfectly. But if you put, for example, 2 gramíneas, you put corn with sorghum, probably they compete with the same nutrient, with the same light, with the ecological structure of the plant is totally the same, so they can compete. They are not going to have complementarity. So even though we have diversity, this is not the best diversity. So I have to say that this is more intensive in knowledge.
Okay.
and information than in inputs.
Yeah.
We don't need inputs, but we need knowledge to do this. And many farmers have been doing this by trial and error.
Okay.
What plants they can complement.
Mhm.
And I think our role as a student, as a scientist, as a professor is try to understand why the system that farmers have work. We need to understand why.
Yeah.
Because they have synergies, is because they attract more natural enemies, is because they provide protection, or they provide nutrients.
Mhm.
So more or less, this is what I wanted to
Explain,
explain.
Professor Nicholls. Thank you. So I rather say that when it comes to biodiversity or functional biodiversity, it's not always the more is the merrier, right?
Thank you.
We really have to consider several things like the synergism and also complementary rather than the competitions. And I note that in the perspective of farmers or experience of farmers, well, we never know if we never try, right? Even though in scientific base, we do have the basic science for that. Thank you for the first answer. Is perfectly answered. Let's now go to the second questions from Mia. So actually the first question is from Faiz, now is from Mia. I think she's also the students of our university. And then she's asking whether there are specific criteria of plants that can be used as a cover crop. What do you think, Professor?
Yeah, we need to see what do we want from cover crops. So if we want to increase soil fertility, we need to select legumes, okay? Because they disponibilize nitrogen. Even there are certain legumes that acidify the rhizosphere and disponibilize phosphorus, like for example, the favas. We want to increase or enhance soil structure, we need to choose grasses. We need to choose gramíneas, okay? Because they can penetrate the soil. They can, if we have a compactation in the soil, they can enter into the soil quickly. They can open the pores. They can enhance the structure, okay? And if we want to use cover crops to increase natural enemies, we need to choose cover crops that provide pollen and nectar. So I can say to Mia that you need to select, you first, you need to say, well, okay, I need cover crops for, for example, if I need cover crops to control weeds, I need to select certain cover crops that have allelopathic compounds that inhibit the seed germination of weeds. Like, for example, radish, or there's or crotalaria, or that is in the tropics. We use a lot of crotalaria because they have allelopathic effect. Or even the rye. The rye is very good to control weeds. So if I have a problem of weeds, I'm going to select those plants that have this effect. If I have problems of nematodes, I'm going to select marigolds, tagetes, for example. They have exudates in the roots that control nematodes. So this is the purpose. If I want to enhance natural enemies, I need to look for flowers that have the pollen exposed, flowers that don't need a lot of water, that are drought tolerant, flowers that don't need a lot of management, flowers that reseed, that you don't need to, every season you need to plant the flowers. So you need to look for those criteria. And I think there are plenty of information and this. Even in my book, I have a lot of examples in biodiversity and pest management that I think, Professor Rina, do you have it? I think I sent it to you last time.
Yeah. I think, can I share to our colleagues here?
Totally, you can share my presentation and everything.
Thank you.
I will send the presentation later because here in the farm, the Wi-Fi is very bad. But next week, I will send it to you for sure.
Thank you, thank you. So, Professor, your answer just now to the question of cover crops actually reminding me of the basic idea of the management of agroecosystems, right? When we talk about the agroecosystem management, the important thing is we really have to know the strategy, how to manage our land or how to manage our agri-system. And one way to be able to have a good strategy is to really know what is the problem in our land and what is also the resources in our land. And that's part of the important decision making process, right, of agroecosystem management. And the example of cover crop here, like it depends on the purpose, it depends on the situation. There is actually one of the examples of the good practice of agroecosystem management. Is that correct? What do you think, Professor?
Totally.
Related to our course, the management of agroecosystem.
Yeah, you did an excellent summary, and I think this is perfect for the management of the agroecosystem. So you need to be sure what is the strategy for why are you going to use this diversity, no diversity per se.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, for example, I just wanted to compare two things.
The more is the merrier, but then we have to really know the function and the purpose and everything.
I just wanted to say that we learn from nature.
Yeah.
Because the same processes that we have in nature, we wanted to imitate in the agroecosystem. So in nature, we have pest regulation. We don't have to do anything because there is a balance. There is a balance between insect, pests, natural enemies, and they maintain the stability. We have nutrient cycling in the natural ecosystem, and we try to do the same with diversity to maintain these processes.
Okay.
We have but the difference between the agroecosystem and the natural ecosystem is that in an ecology, say that if you have a diversified system, it's more stable in a natural ecosystem, right? But in the agroecosystem, it's no any kind of diversity that made the system more stable. Because in the agroecosystem, we harvest.
We harvest, exactly.
Harvest one main crop. In the natural ecosystem, we are not harvesting anything. This is the big difference between the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem, and the agroecosystem.
Thank you, Professor, for once again underlying our students with the basic understanding that natural ecosystem and agroecosystem is something different, and we have to approach it differently. And this is for our students, this is a good reminder for all of you that never treat or consider agroecosystem the same the way you treat natural ecosystem.
Yeah, we learn a lot from the natural ecosystem, and we want to, but there is one difference.
Yes,
we harvest. They don't have. We don't have the natural ecosystem.
Okay. Good pointed. Okay, can we go now to the third questions, Professor, or do you need to take a break or maybe drink something?
I'm far away. I'm in my office. It's far away from the house, so
okay.
I'm okay. Don't worry. No, I'm okay.
No, because this is the discussion is getting more exciting for me, and I'm sure for all of the audiences here. And we go now to the third questions, which is from Anugrah. I think he is also the students of Brawijaya University, our university. He complimented that, first of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Clara for today's insightful sessions. And as what we know, agroecosystem management is a preventive maintenance for agricultural sector that is very important to be implemented. Questions that I want to ask is how we implement the agroecosystem management to the agricultural system that already damaged. Thank you. Thank you, Anugrah, for the questions.
No, excellent question. I'm very impressed about the question because allow me to say many things. And Anugrah, right?
Yeah. Anugrah.
You know why? Because it's very difficult to manage the system, the agroecosystem, with the conventional management. Because he said, or she.
I think it's a he.
Okay, he said.
No, sorry, it's a C because Putri is a girl.
Okay.
Anugrah, do you want to ask your questions directly to Professor Nicholls while you're here? So that Professor Nicholls sure whether you're is he or she.
It's okay.
I think he's it's a C. I'm sure because there's a Putri. Putri is usually for female.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
You know why? Because
Clara. I'm
yeah,
on.
or no?
So you're here?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I can
Yeah.
hear clearly. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you
you
want
want
to ask your question directly to Professor Nicholls? This is a good opportunity for you to explore yourself directly to the well-known professor from California University.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Miss Rina.
Turn on your camera, please.
Okay, wait, Miss.
And for the committee, could you spotlight her? I know, I mean, this is a bit challenging for Anugrah, but this kind of experience will goes a lifetime. So I would like to let the opportunity for our students to ask directly to the
Absolutely.
worldwide professor. So Anugrah, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. What the question I want to ask is, as what we know, agroecosystem management is a preventive maintenance for agricultural sector that is very important to be implemented. Question that I want to ask is how we can implement the agroecosystem management to the agricultural system that already damaged. As what we know, the agricultural system that already damaged is higher risk to be implementing the management agroecosystem it first. Thank you, Dr. Clara.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. It is an excellent question because what we have experienced here in Latin America, especially, is that the majority of farmers are in marginal environments. The land is totally degraded, probably because they were using chemicals or because they receive land that is the worst land. With agrarian reforms in some countries, they receive the worst land. This is the case of Brazil, the case here in Colombia, where the conditions are totally, as you say, the ecosystem is totally damaged. So one thing that we realized with Miguel in the last 6 years that we have been teaching this course here in Colombia is the agroecological restoration. It is very important to restore first the natural resource base and then apply the agroecological principles. So if the soil is totally degraded, we need to start working with the restoration of the soil, how we are going to improve soil biology, how we are going to improve soil structure, soil quality, in order to start growing certain crops with this diversity. So I think this is the first step towards the stability. So we need to enter into that particular point. The other thing that I also interpret your question is that, for example, farmers that for some reason, because I don't want to romanticize small farmers either, are using pesticides, they are using conventional fertilizers, they are in a conventional paradigm. They say they have been even pushed to that paradigm by certain policies, but they want to use agroecosystem management. They wanted to enhance their system. So here the idea is how to make the transition from conventional, very degraded land, very degraded management into a more diversified farming system. So there are different steps toward the conversion. So the first thing is to reduce the use of inputs, reduce the use of chemicals, because they are the ones who are causing the damage. Second, we need to inoculate diversity, because sometimes they don't have predators, they don't have parasitoid, they don't have, they are surrounded by conventional farms, they are using chemical fertilizers. So we need to restore the soil biota in the soil. We need to inoculate this biota. Probably we need to create an ecological infrastructure for those natural enemies that we are going to inoculate to establish. And then little by little, we are diversifying the system. We are increasing the management, because we need to start step by step. It's like the little baby. They need to know how to walk. The same with farmers. Farmers that haven't, they don't have the knowledge how to do this with using diversity. We need to take them, help them, accompany them in this restoration that I think is very important, the first part of your question, and then in the transition towards a more diversified farming system and with good practices. But thank you very much for that. This is an excellent question, I think.
Thank you, Professor Nicole, for the answers. So, what do you think, Anugrah? Are you satisfied with the answers, or do you have more feedback? This is a opportunity for you to ask more if you want.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Clara. I think it's enough. Thank you for the answer that you already said. It is very insightful. So much key learnings are learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Anugrah. Thank you, Professor. So, by the way, Professor Nichols, the meaning of Anugrah is actually a blessings in English. That is his blessing of his parents or her parents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we go now to the, so we already finished the first sessions with three first questions, and we will enter the second sessions, which is unfortunately the last sessions of our today's lecture, with which are the three last questions. And the fourth questions is from Muhammad Farid Nugraha, and he is, I'm sure it's a he, is from Brawijaya University. And he said that in the PowerPoint, one of the key points of agroecosystem diversity is to increase the resilience and stability of the agroecosystem. What easy ways to increase this can be done by farmers other than in terms of cropping patterns or monoculture or polycultures? Is it from selecting superior seeds? Or is there anything else that can be done so that the ecosystem is resilient and stable? The key word of his questions, I think, about the resilience of the agroecosystems. But then he's asking the easiest way. What do you think, Professor?
Yeah, this is another class that Rina has to invite me to give climate change resilience.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I have
one whole class when we talk about resilience, right, Professor? It's going to be really interesting.
You know why? Because I can say so many things.
Exactly.
I can say so many things about that question, because resiliency, as I say, is the property to resist and recover, right?
And recover.
So we have different climatic events, and but we have experienced that diversify farming system using polyculture, agroforestry, silvopastoral systems practices, okay, are much better, made the system more resilient than monoculture, for sure. But I have to explain why. Because, for example, in the case of agroforestry systems, they can create a microclimatic conditions, especially when we have droughts. So this less evapotranspiration and high humidity, the case of agroforestry, in the case of silvopastoral system, that are very important. For example, with animals, in the silvopastoral system, when we have silvopastoral, we have grasses, legumes, and even we have trees and shrubs and trees. Like it's like a building of 4 stories. Okay, we create a microclimatic condition and a very condition, a very good condition for the animals, so they don't stress, so they maintain the milk production stable. This is very important. They are more resilient to climate change, and we have data that prove this compared with animals that are in that are in natural grazing or just with grasses. Okay, they have even 2 or 3 degrees higher in temperature. So there is a lot of stress. The animal have the body condition are stressed, and they reduce the production of milk in a monoculture. When we have in the agroforestry system, we have data that I share with you in coffee systems. So we have less evapotranspiration, that is very good. And in the case of wind breaks, for example, in the case of a hurricane, they reduce the speed of the wind when you protect your farm. This is one way how you made the system. Probably your crops are going to suffer. Even here, last Saturday, we have a mini hurricane here in our farm.
Really sorry to hear that.
Fortunately, we didn't lose everything, but it was terrible. We were panic. We say we experienced the panic with the wind. We're totally, the first time that I experienced that, it was very difficult. The next day, you go and visit your farm, and you see that, thanks God, we create this resilience with all diversity that we have, because we have a lot of windbreaks. So this is one strategy. But for example, if we have droughts, we also can work with the soil. Adding a lot of organic matter, it means that you can store more water into the soil for those situations. If you don't have good structure in your soil, you are going to lose your water, because if you have a lot of a sandy soil, immediately, or if you have a lot of clay, you have also runoff of your water. So you need to store the water with these practices. So you can create this resiliency using practices. Probably your crop is going to suffer, but they can recover very fast compared with the monoculture. And I think this is more or less, okay, this is one strategy with practices, but seeds are so important. Traditional seeds are more drought tolerant than modern varieties. Modern varieties perform very well if they have uh, water and inputs. Be careful with the transgenic varieties, because now they are talking about climate smart agriculture.
Yeah.
Intelligent genes. But this is just one element, because we need to have accompany all the strategies. And these transgenic seeds are going to be patented. So farmers need to pay for those varieties. And I think it's more better to enhance the practices and the knowledge of farmers, and to try to design a farm avoiding the risk. So the idea is to reduce the vulnerability of the farm with the traditional seeds and with the practices according to the climatic event that they are exposed. Because some farmers are more exposed to hurricanes, other farmers are more exposed to drought, other farmers are more exposed to a lot of rain. So we need to look at different practices.
Well, quite, Professor. So again, when we want to build resilient system in our land, there is no one solid way to implement that, right? We really have to have different approach, again, different on the condition and the purpose. So this is all about strategy, right? How to manage our agroecosystem. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. And I hope it will satisfy your questions for Farid. And then I'm sorry, due to the limitation of time, let's now continue to the other questions, which is from Muhammad. And he is from Riau University, Pekanbaru. So not from our university, Professor. He's from Sumatra area. He's our Java. Okay, so he has two questions. The first one, how much it is known at what scale monospecific culture starts to suffer from ecological imbalances? That's the first questions. And allow me to also address the second questions. How much it is known how heterogeneous interceptions, such as hedgerow system, could improve ecological imbalances in large-scale monospecific culture? Thank you, Mr. Muhammad, for the questions. I think he's assuming that he has system in a large-scale monoculture system, and then yeah, how to really determine whether it's already suffering. That's the first question.
I can say that in the case of monoculture, big monoculture, as we have experienced in California, with in 2014, we have a severe drought in California. So we experienced a lot of losses, especially with big farmers. Why? Because it was no the reservoirs of water, because the water in California is subsidized by the state, even for these big farmers, were totally empty. So a monoculture that were very productive, huge monoculture that were very productive, at that with this particular event, they were very vulnerable to climate change. Even we lost millions of dollars on losses. Many farm workers lost their jobs because they closed operations. So it was a huge economic losses in California due to climate change, especially for big farmers. Can you imagine what happened with the small farmers? If the big farmers have those situation or have suffered with these climatic events, the poor farmers that didn't have to do anything with climate change, they are also suffering. But they don't have subsidies in another countries. I'm comparing big farmers in California with the small farmers here in Colombia or in Central America, where we have a huge hurricane in November. Here in Colombia, 98% of the island of San Andres, is an island here in Colombia, was totally devastated by the hurricane.
That's bad.
And they didn't have to do anything with climate change, but they were the ones who are the receptors of climate change. But I can say that they are very vulnerable to climate event. They are very vulnerable to pests and diseases.
Indeed. Yeah.
We have there is plenty of information, scientific information, that demonstrate that monocultures are more vulnerable. The thing is that they have the capital to buy inputs immediately, but this is the treadmill of pesticides. They are using the pesticides, but they have to use next time more pesticides, more pesticides. It's very dramatic. The clash of this paradigm. I have a paper that I can send it to you. Is the conventional paradigm. It's mainly how many farmers are using pesticide because it's tied to policies, to credits that they have to use this monoculture system using pesticide, but they are more vulnerable, I can say it. And contrary, the diversified farming system have been proved that they can be more stable, they have been more resilient, they can be more productive, they can be more they can be an example of the hope that we need, the path that we need to take. Even the pandemic have demonstrated that these small farms that are very diverse can be the hope for the humanity. They are producing food despite the fact all this problem that we are facing. So I can say that we can improve the condition of these imbalances. We can move, and this is my hope, that all these problems made the people to wake up and say, okay, this is not just a symptoms. The monoculture, the feedlots are the cause of the problem. This is the cause of the problem. We are the deforestation in order to create big monoculture is wrong, because we are many of these viruses are moving from this habitat that the humans are destroying to create the monoculture or to create the feedlots. They move to animals, the animals to us, and this is what the pandemic is having right now.
Yeah.
But I can say that could be an opportunity to do the transition from this monoculture into more diversified system. And there are big farmers that are doing this step, and they are doing this transition, because I don't want it to romanticize and say this is the only for small farmers. No, medium-sized farmers, even big farmers, 500, 300 hectares, are doing diversified system. Obviously, if we have 300 hectares, we are not going to do polyculture. We can do a strip cropping. We can do cover crops. We can do things that are more compatible with the machinery or with the size of the farm, or but they introduce diversity.
Thank you. I think this is one of the beneficial things about this kind of lecture, that we share same hope, Professor. The thing that you're saying about culture systems is pretty much vulnerable, and we also agree about that. And we hope that through this kind of forum, through this kind of lecture, we also share same understanding towards our students or our broader colleague outside the university. And I think it's a good thing that you hope probably this condition is the opportunity to do the transitions, and hopefully the transition starts from this kind of forum that really broaden our perspective. Thank you. And let's yeah.
No, I say that I have a lot of hope of the youth, the people that are taking those courses, because they are the ones who are going to change the world.
Actually, your hope pretty much related to, unfortunately, the I saw here the last questions. Sorry for the previous questioner. I got to jump to this last questioner because this is pretty much interesting. This is from Dodi Saputra, and he said he's from high school. I'm not sure whether he's the teacher or the students of the high school in West Sumatra. So it's in another part of our island. And then can I assume, Pak Dodi, that you are the students or teachers of this high school? And then he asked, he said that, Bismillah, I asked permissions to ask, Mom. Previously, I was grateful and happy to be able to listen to the presentations of this interesting material. Well, my question is how the effort or role of the school or campus in your country to maintain and preserve biodiversity there. Hopefully this can be emulated in this area. Then what is your message for the younger generations and students regarding the role of biodiversity in agriculture? Thanks for your attention. That's pretty much related to your last statement, right, Professor? So
what a nice end. I really become emotional about that question, because I'm very optimistic, despite the fact of the problems that we are facing in the world, pandemics, climate change, economic crisis. So many people is very pessimistic. I'm in the contrary. I'm very optimistic. I see this an opportunity, especially for the young people that wanted to change the world. And I think climate change had been one of the first problem or manifestation of the youth, that they wake up and say, you remember all this demonstration about climate change that were all over, that started in high school with kids that say We deserve a good future. And I think with this, and then the pandemic, it's kind of the last wake up. Okay, it's now or never.
No.
And for that is that they need to understand, all of us, we need to understand that we need to have a future. We need to have a future for them. We need to conserve the natural resources for them. They need food in the future. They need safe food, or good quality food, not just safe, because safe can be other things, but good quality. And for that reason, everybody needs to support this right of food. That this is a human right. And the kids, even in the school, need to demand a good quality of food, even that they can learn how to produce the vegetable in their schools. And also they can be solidarious with the farmers that produce the food that they eat at school. But for that, we need education. A simple education, like just be very grateful for farmers that are producing three kind of food every day for us. Everybody needs to say thank you every day, because otherwise we need a farmer always.
Yeah.
Okay, because a lawyer or a doctor or in several locations, but we need a farmer every day. And that kind of solidarity start at the school, when with kids realize where the food is coming from, how the good quality of food can be good for them. It's like you know why I say that? Because I'm in a countryside, in a very poor community, farmer community, and the kids receive the wrong education. The kids here in the school receive education just to expel them to the city,
Okay.
because nobody wants to be a farmer. No one, people regret to be a farmer or to be son and daughter of farmer, because it's the last thing that you want to be is a farmer, because they are poor. We have an stereotype that they are poor. They don't have money. They do like it's a wrong conception of this of the society of farmers. So I'm very happy with this question, even if they come from the school or with the one of the students, but they wake up. They say, no, we want to conserve the diversity because this is our future, what we can do. So you need to demand classes of horticulture, have your own garden in campus, not only in high school or even elementary school, but even at the university level. We need the students to be in touch with land, in touch with what we can learn if we have a garden in at the university, because we always are like looking for the farmers far away. We need to experience and be solidarious with them and be humble with them, and also receive that kind of knowledge as a part of the knowledge, plus the knowledge that we receive at the university. So this is the message for the generation, for the young generation, is that I hope you understand that without food we cannot live, that without biodiversity we cannot have food, and without you that are the leaders of the future, we cannot have a future. So I hope they can take the flag and run and do whatever you have to do. This is my message.
The last statement really goes into I'm sure it goes into the mind and heart of every audience here. It's one of really good wisdom for today. And thank you for that, Professor. I'm really sorry for the other person who asked questions. Unfortunately, we cannot provide or entertain you with the answer. But I'm sorry for Mutia and Aprilia. I'm sure you have good questions here, but can I just take one more question? This is from Professor Siti Herlinda, and she's the professor in Sriwijaya University in Palembang in Sumatera, another university. Hi, Professor Siti Herlinda, are you still there? Professor Siti Herlinda. And she asked whether is there any beneficial effect on the conserving the natural enemies if we use sweet potato as a cover crop in maize fields. That's her question.
Yeah, I saw that question. I said, qué lástima. Yeah, very important. You know, I have that example that I saw exactly the same sweet potato with maize in Cuba. They used to increase the population of Cilias formicarius, that is a predator of a pest in corn. It's very good cover crop, very good to control Cilias formicarius. In Cuba, they use sweet potato not only with corn, with different crops, because it's a very easy cover crop to manage. But at the same time, farmers can use dual purpose. One, enhance beneficial insect, and instead of have just one crop, have two crops for selling the products. So increase the economics of the family. Yeah, I saw that one and it's excellent.
Okay. So Professor Siti Herlinda, do you want to have a feedback on the answer? You can use this opportunity to talk directly to Professor Nicholls.
Okay, thank you, Professor Nicholls. It's great. Thank you for information.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that that particular example, I have it in my book because for me it was amazing when I saw that one in Cuba. And we have a lot of information about Cuba with another professor called Luis Vasquez, that he has been doing a lot of work with natural enemies. And you need something, Professor Siri, you can send me an email and I can send some information that
Great opportunity, Professor Siti Herlinda. So
Okay.
I just want to inform you that Professor Siti Herlinda is one of the professor for the beneficial insect, right, Professor? Or you're the professor of natural enemy, right?
Biological.
Yes, natural enemy, parasitoid and predator. Predatory atrophies. I researched about parasitoid and predatory atrophies from Nicholls.
Is one of the well-known professor for biological control in Indonesia, Professor Nicholls. Thank you, Professor Siti Herlinda, for your participation in this lecture and also for the questions. And
today we observed about predatory atrophy and parasitoid for control for armyworm, Spodoptera frugiperda. Yeah, this year.
Excellent. Looking forward to having collaboration with you, Professor, one day.
Yeah, anytime you can write me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Siti Herlinda, for the question. And thank you all the participants, all the audience here for the questions. And thank you, of course, Professor Nicholls for the answers. I'm really sorry that we cannot accept all the questions, even though I'm sure this actually a lot of excellent questions that you raised here. But probably if you don't mind, Professor Nicholls, I can email you the question that is not being answered yet. And then would you kindly answer the questions through the email, and then I will just share the answers to our student and our colleague here. Yeah, thank you. So this Professor Nicole today has been a really profound day. I don't know for the other audience, but for me personally, it's been a heartwarming day that now that today we gain more knowledge and experience and also wisdom about biodiversity in terms of agroecosystems. So for our students, I would just like to address that if you still think biodiversity is something that aside your life, please don't think it that way anymore. As Professor Nicholls coined out at her last statement that no biodiversity means no food. And no food means no future. And it's our responsibility to maintain the biodiversity for the sake of the sustainability. And for that last wisdom, I cannot thank you enough for Professor Nicholls. for being so generous to share the knowledge to us. And on behalf of the Department of Plant, Pest, and Disease, once again, I would like to share our deepest gratitudes. And we are really sorry if is there any inconvenience during this lecture. And also for the participants, thank you very much for you staying here until the last sessions. And yeah, I think that's a wrap for our today's lecture. And for the participants, see you again at the 21st of May. We're gonna have another, I'm sure, interesting lecture, and that time is gonna be from Professor Altieri. Is actually the husband of Professor Nicholls. 21st of May, 7:30 a.m. Indonesian time. Professor
Okay.
Nicholls, have anything to say?
Thank you. Thank you all for being so patient today with this lecture. And I wish you the best. And anything that I can help with, you can write to me. Professor Rina has my email, and I will send the presentation and you can share with everybody. Thank you. Good luck. Bye.
I offer you for the last session. Shall we have group picture? Shall we? For the audience is still here, could you please open up your camera and then we can have group picture? This is, I think, a good opportunity for us to share pictures. Okay. There's 10 pages. I'm gonna start with the first one. So I'm gonna say 1, 2, cheese. Okay, and another page. 1, 2, cheese. Another one.
Stop it.
Cheese. And then another one. And then another one.
Stop it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Stop it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a wrap for today's really interesting lecture. Thank you very much, Professor Nicholls. Please give a round of applause for the audience for the Professor Nicholls.
Stop it, Mom.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Good luck. Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye.
See you.
Many thanks.